You're listening to the Mobcast Network.
Doing a zillion other things, such as costuming. These aren't actually, real tattoos. So I've got a couple fans here, and, this guy to my left to talk about Rebels. I'm gonna actually...
This is the best seat.
Woo! Okay, so we have to keep filming. I'm gonna eat the mic. This is gonna be really attractive. Oh boy. Okay. I know, right? Okay, so anyways, back to the introductions. Would you like to introduce yourself first? Your honored guest.
Timothy Zhan. I know a little bit about
Maybe you have someone else you wanted to join us today.
Oh yeah, I got a question for you, Tim. Is maybe we can talk about how Thrawn was portrayed in the Rebels series this year. Can I come up and join you?
Yeah, please, come on.
Okay. I'm Henry Gilroy.
Henry Gilroy.
Sorry, I have to have a one-chair buffer between me and Zahn. Sure, that's water, I believe it.
Everyone knows who Henry is. Does he need to introduce himself further?
I co-developed the Clone Wars animated series with Dave and George back in 2005-2006, and I've been the head writer on Star Wars Rebels for the last 3 or 4 years. So. I just like to say, I'm here because of you. I came here because you fans here at DragonCon are so passionate. And oh my gosh, that's Kanan sitting there. You can't see me because this is post-season 2 Kanan, but he senses it's me. But I'm here for you guys. You guys are really passionate and you inspire us back at the studio. So
he's using the Force.
I did see Thrawn Cat. Is that canon though, Tim?
You can make it canon.
Oh no.
So I made a bunch of Pablo.
And then, before we get too much further, we have 2 more introductions. Other fellow fans on the panel.
Hey everyone, I'm Bethany Blanton. I'm the editor-in-chief. Not the editor-in-chief. I just stole your position, I'm sorry. I'm the executive editor at StarWarsReport.com and doing some press here at DragonCon. Very excited to be on this panel.
You don't normally get to witness a coup d'etat just right near the panel.
And my name is Aaron Goins. I am a podcaster. I do the podcast Star Wars Bookworms and also a podcast about the Freemaker Adventures called Star Wars or Star Scavengers. And if you're not watching Freemaker Adventures, you should. It's really awesome. But I'm just a huge fan of Rebels, so I'm excited to be sitting at this table with some of the creator types people.
We're all very eloquent.
Yeah, I mean, what a great time it is to be a Star Wars fan. I mean, a passionate Star Wars fan. There's a movie every year. We have our weekly, I'll say, stipend of Rebels to give guys, and then Freemaker is actually a really awesome addition to stuff. And Tim's got books coming out, and there's 2 novels that just came out, so it's a lot of great, juicy stuff.
Let's talk a little bit about Rebels. For, well, I guess, this half of the table, what has been your favorite part of Rebels or being part of the show? And then for our half of the table, we did not sit segregated like this on purpose. What has been your favorite part of watching Rebels? I'll let you start.
I just wondered, should we start or should they start kind of hang themselves? Yeah.
Rebels is just, right now it may be my favorite part of Star Wars, just the weekly storytelling that we get. It's got every element that I've ever wanted to see in Star Wars, with the adventure side of things, the team up of this group of really diverse characters, and Jedi, the Force. We get crazy things like Bendu in Rebels, which is stuff that it's just so unique to that series that, it just, every episode I'm excited to see what else is coming at us.
So I have a pattern as a Star Wars fan, and that is when the stuff that I want doesn't come out, I get sad, and then I get really skeptical of stuff that's coming out, and then I love it anyway. So when I first heard about Rebels, I was like, oh man, why can't we just do the Clone Wars? And what is this Rebels thing? And I don't want another animated show, which is exactly what I did with the Clone Wars too, and exactly what I've done with the books. and kind of what I've done with movies. But I wound up loving Rebels, and so I can't wait to see what's in store coming forward with the show. And I do want to say that the Thrawn trilogy is why I read Star Wars books. So thank you for that, Tim.
Thank you. You're welcome. Well, you know what my favorite part of Rebels is.
It's the Loth Cats, right?
Actually, just to be serious about it, you were talking about the teamwork. One of the things I have suggested over the years that Lucasfilm needs to do with the movies is show a non-dysfunctional family. Because the Skywalkers are all dysfunctional. Granted, a lot of them were manipulated into being that, but I wanted to see a Star Wars version of The Incredibles, you know, with a family that really is coming together, and that's what we've got in Rebels. They're not blood, but they are a family, not just a team, they're a family. And I love the way you have built that and grown it over the years. It's just been tremendous and something I've always wanted in Star Wars, and thank you for giving it to us.
Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, the family dynamic is definitely the most satisfying thing. People always ask me, who's your favorite character? And I really can't give them an answer because it depends on the story that I'm writing at the moment or the story that I'm watching, because I think we've tried to service all the characters and have them have their own unique arcs and growth paths. So, and that's a tremendous amount of work goes into it from the story group, the writing team, and then the storytelling continues from design, you know, texture, paint, and animation. All of that contributes to telling these stories. We work so hard to try to give you guys something that we feel is worthy of the Star Wars name. So to say which one of my kids is the favorite, it's hard for me to choose. There's a couple of scripts I like best, but I have to say, when you come off of season 2, where we started with Vader, and we ended with Maul and Vader, and Inquisitors, and Kanan being blinded, that was like, oh my gosh, how are we gonna top that? And I felt we actually had fantastic raw material with Tim's character in Thrawn, because he is a new kind of adversary who isn't gonna outforce you, or out-mystic you. He's just gonna beat you. And your response, and he has a fantastic theme song, doesn't he? Yeah. So good. So obviously gratitude to Tim, because we had a really satisfying experience in bringing Thrawn to the series.
Well, let me bounce that right back. You did a tremendous job of picking up the character, understanding him, knowing how to write for him, and then doing it.
Well, I have a confession to make, and that is just like Bethany. I mean, your books are all why, I write Star Wars. They were the first reason I started reading the Star Wars novels. I think I read Splinters of the Mind's Eye first, but your Thrawn books are like, wow, this can be Star Wars too, and so thanks for that.
Well, you kind of sort of refused to answer the next question I was going to ask already, which was what has been everyone's favorite episode from this season. I'm just going to say Trials of the Darksaber, because fight me, that was amazing. Do anyone else have like a favorite episode from season 3, or?
I have a burning question about an episode. I feel like I have the right people at the table here to ask.
So is the title have the word sons in it? Is that why it's
No, because this is specifically about Thrawn. Bringing Thrawn into Rebels, he seems very in control most of the time when you see him in the show. He's very in control. He's 10 steps ahead of any other character. But when he is faced with the entity that is Bendu, it seemed like it kind of shook him a little bit, almost like he didn't know quite how to handle that situation. I was wondering what your guys' perspective is on it. Was that something, is the Force something that Thrawn doesn't quite understand, that he can't, kind of manipulate?
Well, I can tell you, if you want to go ahead, and I can tell you how we done.
First of all, has anybody not seen season 3 of Rebels who is planning to see it?
You have to leave.
We love you all, but we're spoiling you.
Wait, does somebody have earplugs?
Well, that who want to see it. The reason I'm asking is I would like to analyze that last battle. I don't want to do it for anybody who hasn't seen the show.
We'll just sit back. Go for it.
Okay. One of the things of my appreciation with the Rebels team is not only do they understand how to write Thrawn, they understand the whole meta around him. There are 3 factors in that last battle that are not under Thrawn's control. Any of those 3 goes the other direction and he wins everything. First one is political. He's ordered to take prisoners. Without that order, he demolishes the base from orbit, and there's no season 4 of Rebels because they're all dead. Second one is Constantine, who is an idiot. My guess is he's so politically placed, or he's got political influence, that nobody has been able to actually demote him. And that fits in with a lot of what we know about the politics of the Empire at that point anyway, in the military. If he does not act like an idiot going for glory and lose his interdictor, the blockade stays solid, there's no one comes back to help them, Thrawn wins everything. And the third factor is the Bendu, which he cannot anticipate and cannot control. Without that, again, he wins everything. Just as a side note, I really like the fact that when he lands and confronts Hera and Kanan, is surrender, Hera, or I kill you all, starting with the Jedi. Somehow he's figured out the relationship. So he aims either taking the biggest one first, the Jedi, as my target, or the one that's going to hurt her most. Either way, it's very perceptive. Again, understanding how Thrawn works. But with any of those 3 goes the other way, and he's won it. That is how you take Thrawn. You give him something he has no control over or no understanding, and the Bendu is a big one of those. So, analysis complete. Needless to say, I loved how they did that.
Yeah, that was a tricky one to write because we didn't want Thrawn to lose. For all intent and purposes, like he was saying, he should have won, but for incompetence, for conditions that he couldn't control. At the end of it, though, he even overcomes the first 2. And he has our core Rebels team dead to rights, surrounded by troops, and it is only the Bendu. And there is something about, this is something we wanted to keep consistent with the books, is he has a problem with the Force. He can't quantify it. It's not something he can tactically analyze because it's mystical in nature. It's elusive to him. And so that final scene you were saying, him being puzzled and caught off guard, he knows this is a problem. And he can't control it, and it drives him crazy because it's why he's wanted to deal with the Jedi and deal with the Jedi and deal with the Jedi, because they are something that he can't always defeat because of their ability to wield the ether, to control the Force.
And just as a visual of this, Corwin put together this. This is Thrawn with a phalanx of 4 Death Troopers. So we're just going to put this here.
So, do you think that he's afraid of the Bendu? Because the Bendu says...
So here's the Bendu. Solve that one right there.
High quality animation right here going on.
Yeah, it's my stop motion set. Sorry. That's it. Previous.
Actually, so Tim, I've got a question for you. So last year at Celebration Europe, we got the big announcement about Thrawn coming back. This year at Celebration, we got the announcement about another character coming back. What was it like for you to be in the room when they were like, hey, by the way, Rook, he's there on the screen?
Yes. Very cool. Just watching. My take on, people who say, well, Lucasfilm has thrown out all the other books. My take is that, okay, we've decided we're going to do new movies, new TV shows, etc. Everybody get off the stage while we decide what we're doing, and then we can invite people in that will fit into the new direction we're going. So Thrawn has been invited back in, and now Rook has also been invited. Looking forward to seeing what you guys do with him. There's that Cheshire Cat smile.
It's just, I mean, all I can say is tune in for season 4.
Yeah. The one thing I'm really hoping for, and this doesn't, because I don't know anything, doesn't give anything away, I'm hoping that we have at least one real kick-ass fight between Zeb and Rook.
That sounds like a great idea.
Yeah. We'll see if you get to that at some point, but I think that would be, that all alone by itself, that would be a reason to bring him in, just to watch Zeb fighting something half his size and having trouble with it.
Yeah, I think Dave talked about a celebration. The tricky part of designing Rook was, I think, the early designs where he was kind of like an alligator guy, and just to really make something that we hadn't seen before, someone, because Nakri really haven't been portrayed in animation to this point. So we really wanted to go, okay, let's take the time and make this special and give this character special skills, so you get a sense that he could like stand toe to toe with our rebels. So I think kind of having a character to be a threat to accomplished heroes like that is always tricky if you're not, if they're not force enhanced.
And let me just mention again my appreciation for all the work that they've done, putting in the details, putting in the thought, finding the right voice actor for Thrawn, making their ships look real. Okay, this is how, this wing folds down. That's how we would design something like that. It just adds to the whole sense of, they're not writing anything new. This is the chronicles that they've picked up about what has actually happened out there. They're just writing it out. Chuck Jones once said his favorite comment was from a little boy who said, "You're the right one who writes the stories about Bugs Bunny, not who invents him. Bugs Bunny's real, you're just writing his stories." And that's the way Rebels feels. This is a real universe that we're dealing with. And I appreciate, it takes time and effort to do that, and I appreciate all you guys have done that way.
Thanks, Tim. Great. Yeah, well, we work hard for you guys, because you guys deserve it. So I'd love to hear some questions if you guys want to come
I
up.
have one first.
Okay.
So, hey, Henry.
This is the fan, and I forget.
Henry, how you doing?
Space married? Oh, God.
So, season 4.
Look, okay, didn't Han and Leia actually get married? That's what you were talking about, right?
Yeah. No, you know exactly who I'm talking to. So, in season 4, since we talked about this last year, and a bunch of us are still sobbing hysterically because it hasn't happened yet. Do we get to see Hera and Kanan?
Are you talking about the bromance between Zeb and Chopper?
Oh wait, this is Zeb and Callus you're talking about.
We're getting behind Callus. He can wait his turn. So we're going to start with Hera and Kanan because space married. Are we ever going to see them kiss? And please tell me it's not going to be right before he dies.
Terrible.
I watched the show.
The fact that you want this and you want it really bad, you haven't got it, means we must be doing something right. You keep watching. You can't stop watching.
Can I at least get credit for the shirt?
Okay, it's a fantastic shirt.
Thank you.
I'll take a picture and send it to Dave. Okay.
That'll go well.
I just want you to watch season 4.
Do we know when we're going to be getting it?
I don't know. I think you're probably here tomorrow.
Yeah. You know what? I was really hoping we could one-up Fan Expo. I know
Yeah.
we can't.
I don't actually. That's the truth. I don't. And sometimes, with TV production or whatever, they move that stuff around. So even until the last minute. So.
Yeah.
Late this month, early next, though.
Yeah, that was like. That's a good.
That's how it's been.
September, right? September,
October.
Usually, what's the fall? Starts in the fall.
I know we were watching episodes of like season 2 at New York Comic Con 2 years ago. So that's early October. Yeah. But since you brought it up, hot Callus. Hot Callus. What are your thoughts?
So when you saw Hot Callus, what did you think? Oh wait, what? Oh,
I
she has to
didn't get
take
it.
her shirt off.
I figured I should just
Man,
sit
that
here.
sounded really bad on the tape recording.
This is not
She's
the worst
wearing
thing I've ever
something
done. Are you about to put the shirt on too?
No.
Oh, okay.
Lucasfilm just banned me from ever attending. It was an overshirt, Tracy. Just want you to
There
know
was
that.
a Barris costume, which probably doesn't make it better. Go.
No.
I was not on the Hot Callus train. I just
okay.
really enjoy watching everyone else.
Yeah,
on the Hot
actually, it's
Callus
really
train.
funny when we had that appearance, it's the shot from the trailer. Whenever, as sort of a joke that Dave did to the Disney folks, is whenever Hot Cows would walk on the screen, he put this backplate music of a Kanye, and he's like, oh yeah, oh yeah. So it was just it's kind of a joke to the because he's Hot Catalyst now. So.
Actually, but on a serious note for that, so I just rewatched all 3 seasons because I'm insane.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you studying for this.
I did. I put some effort in. I did my homework. I hope I'm going to get A at the end of the class. Do you actually think that? I mean, obviously we saw Zeb and Callus sort of reach an understanding in that episode in season 2, I think it was. But do you think that they can ever actually be friends, given Callus's participation in, genocide?
I think that he was participating, but he really thought he was doing the right thing. And I think that there were ideas about like expanding the nature of, but I think there is like, okay, you did something in the past, you are apologetic about it, and you basically endanger your life many times to try to make up for it. And that's something that has earned Zeb's respect. So yeah, there's total romance there. They're buddies.
One of the things I would like to see in season 4, and I don't know if they're going to have room for this with all the other plot threads they have to resolve, is whether or not Callus will be accepted by everybody, because he has come from the Imperial side. There should be people who will never trust him that he's not a plant. I don't know if there's any plans for that. And again, you've got so many plot threads to deal with, I don't know if that comes around. But that would be a legitimate thing. We saw him turn against the Empire, but the rebels didn't. For all they know, he could be a plant by Thrawn.
Well, yeah, you could say that, but I mean, if he hadn't like stepped in, then they would be dead. You know, it's that sort of situation. He hadn't. I mean,
Yeah, I'm not saying our heroes will not accept him, but there'll be people in the rebellion who haven't
absolutely.
seen any of
Sure.
this who will trust him.
Like how Bodhi wasn't necessarily, everyone's like, oh, you're a traitor.
Right.
Like, are you really deciding you want? But actually, since I cut everyone off before, if you guys do have questions, go ahead and come up to the microphone. Feel free to continue asking about the space marriage.
Hashtag space marriage.
Oh, I started season 1. Hashtag space marriage.
Oh, great, the Emperor's in line. Does he have to wait?
Yes. Yes.
Really quick, one of the things that I think you guys did really well in bringing Thrawn on is showing how he analyzes his enemies via their art. And one of the things that sort of scares me right now is that one of the first pieces of art that he was looking at was Sabine's art. And this is more for the fan panel, part of the panel, because I know you guys can't say anything about this. How worried are you that the first of the current family characters are going to be bumped off? Would be which one do you think will be bumped off?
If it's Sabine, I will riot. if it's Sabine...
Wait, did you just say bumped off? You're a real pessimist.
Possibly New Yorker,
What's
too.
that fan thing that people say, oh, they're wearing plot armor, they're never going to die?
No, I'm literally worried about everyone, but I just want to see my girl become Mandalore.
Yeah.
See? Thank you. What about you guys?
I guess we know Heir makes it through, right?
Yeah,
Heir and Chopper makes it.
Yeah.
Chopper makes it through. The big question marks for me are the Force users, because it just doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to have a ton of them around given the time period. So do Ezra and Kanan have to die? I don't think they do. I've heard many people say, well, there's no way they live because we can't have Jedi at that time. It's a big galaxy, so I don't think death is necessary for those characters. I'm personally very scared for Kanan. I just feel, for whatever reason, I feel like that's a character you guys might snuff out, but I really hope not.
Okay, bear in mind a couple of things that, and this is just logic, not any foreknowledge or anything. Remember that what Yoda says is the last of the Jedi you will be, to Luke. Kanan is a failed Jedi.
Wait,
No.
He got knighted.
He got knighted in the temple.
Yes, he did.
Okay, he got knighted by a make-believe guy, or
All he does is Force wills it.
I didn't see his papers. I'm just
All he
saying.
does is Force wills it.
Where's the Jedi?
You
By the
can
Grand
quit
Inquisitor?
being
By
a
the Grand
Jedi.
Inquisitor, who was a Jedi
You
guardian.
can quit being a Jedi.
Actually, yeah, Ahsoka demonstrated.
Yeah,
She
Ahsoka.
basically said,
Yeah.
"I'm leaving the Jedi Order." So she says, like, 18, I'm not a Jedi anymore, and Shroud of Darkness.
And Eli is really only an apprentice at this point, isn't he? Or a
Did you say
Padawan?
Eli? You mean Ezra.
Ezra, sorry.
Someone has their character on the brain. I wonder why.
Wait, did
I
you
keep
just do
running
some
that.
crazy, like, you know, has Ezra got a twin brother named Eli or something?
Ezra and Eli Manto are twins.
There we go.
Confirmed.
And the
Sorry.
universe
No, not
gets
confirmed.
smaller and smaller. Ezra is only a Padawan, so technically they could both live and Yoda is still not wrong. So just bear that in mind.
Yeah, I mean, you could even say, if you wanted to be a purist about it, and I usually am, that Luke would be kind of like the last of the classically trained Jedi by a Jedi Master, I would say. And because Yoda himself, you know, Obi-Wan began his training and Yoda finished it.
Actually, what you mentioned before brings up a question, because Hera was at the Ewok celebration at the end of season 2 of the Freemaker Adventures, right? Do I understand that? So do we take that as a good sign about her continued existence past Yavin?
Oh,
I'm not really sure where this
I haven't really thought about that connection, because the shows are separated in such a way. But I don't know. I heard her name being called out on
Rogue One.
Rogue One. So
Rogue One.
I would say.
And I've confirmed that's her, not her father.
Have you thought about them
correct.
all dying? Is that a possibility?
Oh my gosh.
Well, if Phoenix Squadron is instrumental in Rogue One, and they all die in the mission,
I mean,
it's a fan theory.
I think Hera
That's
has
a terrible fan theory. Everyone dies.
Personally, I think Hera needs to
This
live.
is not Joss Whedon.
I think Hera needs to live because someone has to live and, you know, tell their story. Yeah.
Right.
I was saying, easy there. Hamilton. You
Next
know what?
question.
I live in Hamilton, Jersey.
Speaking
Next
of Hera, like being at the Endor celebration in Freemaker Adventures, I know, although Freemaker Adventures is not canon, they do work with the story group to make sure that they can fit into canon. And I know Leland Chi has spoken to the fact that if you see a character in a time period, it's likely that that character in canon should be in that time period as well. So
yeah,
it makes sense. that
It's
she
true.
would.
Like Corey, I think, is a fun character, and you know Bob Roth and Bill Moss, the writer, executive producers on Freemakers, are like they know Star Wars inside out, you know. And Carrie Beck's done a great job in guiding that series and really making it a good show with solid storytelling.
Hi. So my question is in terms of in Rogue One, they seem so divided in terms of the concept of coming together and getting these plans for the Death Star. It seems like you have to do this or you die. So my question in terms of the final season, or my hope, I'll just say for the final season, is that Thrawn does these things that makes them being like, oh, we can't unify, and that he scares the living poop out of them because they know that if this one person can do this, there's got to be others like him. So they just seem so frightened in Rogue One. Like, it seems like that's what I'm hoping with Thrawn.
So was that a question?
It was more a hope ideal. Is that something that's, I don't know what you can and can't say. So.
Oh,
He's
Yeah.
trying to trick you
I
into
mean,
revealing something.
I'll just say in season 4, you know, Thrawn plays an instrumental role in the story of our Rebels characters. So I can't wait for you to see it.
Is that a 000 shirt?
It is.
You're my new favorite person. I'm sorry, continue. What was your question?
So as far as the Callus thing with everybody wondering how the rebels are going to trust him, it's awfully convenient that there's a rebel that just so happens to have blonde hair and a beard. Just saying.
Hold on, explain.
Wait, which?
What?
I think you might have seen him in Return of the Jedi.
Oh.
You
Okay.
mean
That's
white?
the-
You mean white hair and a beard, right?
No, I mean blonde.
Rex.
No,
Why hair and a beard?
General Madine.
The guy who's like, when Mon Mothma's explaining the plans, his beard and his hair are terrifying. It should not be on any person. That dude.
I see what you're saying.
That not.
Wait. Sorry, are you saying that Madine is callous?
That's my insurgent theory.
That's an interesting theory.
Thank you.
No, how about this? That's an interesting theory.
Yes. But I did have a question concerning casting, because I'm always kind of interested in seeing like how people are chosen for certain roles and everything. And one thing that immediately got my notice is that for voices for Ben Rao, y'all had cast Kevin McKidd, and for Gar Saxon, the other opposite side Mandalorian, it was Ray Stevenson. And since my favorite show of all time is Rome, I'm wondering if there was any dots connected on that.
Absolutely on purpose.
Yes.
Absolutely on purpose.
Awesome.
Hello.
So, my burning question is, we did see Jyn on Lothal in Forces of Destiny, and of course we know that Hera and Chopper are in Rogue One, so in Season 4, can you let us know if we're going to be seeing more of those Rogue One connections in Season 4, even though it's not the same timeline?
Yeah, and I think Dave spoke at Celebration and said that there's definitely going to be, you know, connections.
Maybe
to
like
Rogue
young
One.
space semi-driver Bodhi Rook.
Cassian Andor.
Woo!
Is that fan fiction you're coughing over there?
My other just very super quick question is, there has to be more than 3 Inquisitors, right? So, yeah, so like...
Well, yeah, because you got
It's not
7
very-
sisters,
Well,
and the
yeah.
math doesn't add up,
So,
right?
like,
What's up with that?
do you know, like, maybe some more details about how the Inquisitor program works, even though I know that the Darth Vader comic is about to come out with more information about that?
I so wish I could tell you more. However, I think a lot of questions will be answered in that Darth Vader comic, and you know, hopefully further on down the road, you'll be able to see like the whole machinations of the structure.
By the way, everybody, if you haven't seen it, Darth Vader #7, that cover, hi Angela. It's beautiful. It has all the Inquisitors on it, and it's gorgeous. Go look at it.
And when I've seen the Vader cover before that, it's even prettier. And this is someone who cosplays his own sister. Like, it's Vader deconstructed. It's amazing.
Do we have an official time frame for season 4? Where it starts,
You mean
where
like-
it ends,
oh, okay.
where it starts fits into the Star Wars timeline?
Well, it's definitely before Battle.
Is it a year before, 60 months? And do you have anything official or?
I don't know if they've released anything. I think that's specific to the season. So when
Okay,
you
just
guys,
wondered.
Yeah, I think there's going to be plot elements and stuff that actually kind of address some of that. Okay, the timing specific. So you'll know. I think when you season 4, you'll know pretty quick. Okay.
So this is for Timothy. Can you describe when Lucasfilm or Dave or whoever called you and said, "Hey, we want to use Thrawn"? To describe that for us. And after the process was over, and you got to see the first episode with Thrawn. How'd you feel? How did it work out for you?
Okay, first of all, the Blu-ray has a little bit of.
Yeah.
I haven't got it yet. I haven't got it yet.
Well, that answers your question. You get to see it on camera and everything. It's awesome.
Yeah. The quick answer is in September of 2015, they contacted me to come out, if I'd like to come out to Lucasfilm and chat with Dave Filoni about Star Wars. That was all they would say. We couldn't get a meeting until mid-November, just the way schedules work. So I was getting emails back and forth a little bit. And I was poking for information. They weren't giving me any. But eventually I was able to piece together, Dave Filoni is going to be there. Some of the story group is going to be there. Dave has budgeted 2 hours to chat about Star Wars. and the final one was, oh, and there may be a film crew there. Is that okay? So then they brought me in. I sat down at I was early before most everybody except the film crew.
He got first dibs on the bagels.
Yeah. Well,
it's good to have.
Here's the snackage. So this is the head of the table. So I'll sit over here until I figure out what's going on. And then Leland and Pablo came in and escorted me up to the front of the table in the right corner up here. And I asked Leland, "Do you know what's going on?" He said, "Oh yeah." Leland, thank you. And then the story group started filtering in, and it was always, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, big fan." So I know I'm not in trouble. And then finally, Carrie and Dave came in, sat at the head of the table, and told me what was happening. The Thrawn was going to be major villain. And some of my reaction is on the DVD special about that. Then they took me down. They showed me the opening of Thrawn's first appearance. I didn't get to see the whole episode, but just the opening, his arrival on the Star Destroyer. And then we went up and, well, I got to see the whole bullpen and meet Henry and everybody else. And then 4 of us went upstairs and discussed the book they wanted me to do as a tie-in to the season. And then it went off and had tape over my mouth for 8 months because we couldn't say anything.
Yeah.
And Bree is still
Gosh.
mad at me.
Yeah. Shame you weren't, on the panel.
I'm so
talking about
glad.
this
I'm
week.
so glad you could keep a secret, Tim.
Don't play poker
Otherwise,
with this man. Ever.
in the next novel, Timothy Zhan would be dead.
So, question: since I am now on the DVD, the extras for season 3,
Oh boy.
does that mean I'm canon too?
I would say yes.
Yeah, but even canon characters can die.
That's true, yeah.
But they can also become Force Ghosts and become immortal and all that stuff too.
I mean, they should be a character name like Timothy Zhan.
Thank you very, very much.
Actually, Tim, I have a question for you related to that. So did you basically have at least the outlines of the scripts for all of season 3 before you started writing Thrawn? Since obviously all of the awesome relationships between Thrawn and Governor Price, the costume is amazing, by the way. Thank you. And then Yularen, they all really came into play.
Yeah. I had, not when I started, but as I was writing, I got, they were giving me access to the scripts that had Thrawn in them as a major character. So I was able to see a lot of this. I was able to see things like, okay, Thrawn is doing some hand-to-hand sparring. Okay, I'll set up why he would want to do physical things. We see Price doing a combat with, I think it was Sabine, and okay, let's set her up with that. The other thing, you mentioned Yularen and such, none of the relationships in Rebels Season 3 looked like first meetings. Okay, Thrawn seems to know Yularen. Governor Price seems to know Tarkin. Okay, let's put those first contacts into the book, so that when we get to season 3, it's like, yeah, these people have a little bit of history between them. And so, yeah, I was able to fiddle things in and tweak things as I got scripts and as the book progressed, to be able to make it as seamless a connection as I could.
Follow-up question related to that. Are you working with Marvel on the adaptation they're doing of the novel?
They are not working with me directly. I've offered my assistance if they want it. We are really hoping that there's enough interest in the comic adaptation that we can do some new material, but that'll have to wait to see how sales go. I've got my bid in to assist with that if they go that direction.
So in other words, you're saying everyone here should go to their local
Buy
comic
3
store
copies.
and pre-order the book 3 times, basically?
Yeah, at least,
Okay.
yeah.
We're all gonna do that, right?
Yes.
Yeah, excellent.
They make great Christmas presents. Coming out in February, you may have to hold them for a little bit, but you know.
First of all, let me say, from a lifelong fan, I spent the summer of my 15th year in the theater watching the original film. Thank you. Thank you, because you really have continued on in that vein. Also, thank you for answering the question left over from Clone Wars, what happened to Ahsoka Tano. Thank you for that, too. Question is, how did from season 3, how did the idea about Maul coming back and having to be killed by Kenobi twice, how did that come up?
I think actually it was mentioned somewhere, I think last year, that the original title of the season 2 finale was Twilight of the Apprentice. And the reason that I chose that title was for multiple reasons, because the idea of an apprentice moving on and maybe becoming more as a Jedi could be applied to Ezra, but also Maul technically is still an apprentice, a Sith apprentice, you could say, even though he doesn't see himself as a Sith. Maybe he's not really a Sith. Palpatine might still see him as an apprentice, right? So Maul was originally planned. I think he originally died in my first draft, or in our early drafts of the script, and then Dave decided, wait, this is a really kind of interesting way to bring Maul back and develop him further. So we felt that there was more story to tell with Maul, but also the last time Maul and Kenobi battled in the Clone Wars, it was about Maul getting revenge, and he got his revenge and hurt Kenobi deeply. So, when you reach them 15 years later down the line, we see that Obi-Wan has grown, and we really wanted to explore what happens when someone does grow and move on and become something else. But Maul wasn't that person. Maul was the other side of the coin where he never changed. He was still full of hate and wanted, even though he wasn't necessarily this person where it's so much revenge, it was about his legacy and what's next for him and what it means to actually go on. Like he felt he had to do this thing to go to the next phase of his life. Ultimately, he suffered the ultimate fate.
Thank you. It went by quickly, but wasn't Maul's attempt on Obi-Wan the same trick he used to take out Qui-Gon?
That's exactly right.
Yeah, only it doesn't, the same trick, only it doesn't work this time, yeah.
Did you feel like there was any extra pressure when you had to sit down to write Twin Sons, or was it just another day on the job?
Oh my gosh, yeah, no, that was a tough one. I wrote a couple of drafts, and then Dave wrote the last one, revision on it, and it was a definitely, yeah, I mean, because we knew it was going to be epic and big, yet we had to remember that this really isn't the Maul series or the Obi-Wan series. This series is Ezra, and in that moment, in that exchange that Ezra has with Obi-Wan, we wanted him to come away with something that kind of strengthened his resolve, to make him remember, okay, what happened to you at the end of the previous season, and your interaction with Maul this season have actually led to this moment where I'm going to take it from here and clean up this mess that I should have cleaned up 20 years ago. And so I think that's a really kind of interesting. It's a really interesting thing.
The final battle between Obi-Wan and Maul was something that happened so quickly, and I think it surprised a lot of fans because people have these certain expectations. They're like, oh, this is going to be this huge epic battle. We have two of the best lightsaber masters going to go out. We're going to get this 10-minute battle at the end of this episode. And it was, flipped expectations, which I thought was done awesomely. I loved the episode. Were you guys kind of discussing that in the planning? Fans are not going to be, expecting this.
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely fans of a lot of samurai movies where it's the better swordsman you are, the fewer strokes you need. That's one part. The other part of it is, and I say this in the DVD, is these guys have fought each other how many times now? 3 times? 4 times? It was a 5. I can't remember, but
you guys wrote it.
Well, I was going to say, Phantom Menace obviously was a battle, but then multiple times in the Clone Wars. So there isn't going to be a lot of surprises. They know what each other is going to throw at them. So there's more probably in the moments before the actual attack and repost than there's more planning about. You see, coming this way. Well, I know this movie does, and this movie does. So it's a lot of it is more mental, and Obi-Wan is prepared when he tries what he tries.
Very much the last scene in Sanjuro, the Toshiro Mifune movie, yeah.
Actually, if I might speak to that, I wanted to say how much I really appreciated the visual cue you gave where Obi-Wan had changed over the years. You saw him first with his old stance, and then you very deliberately visually with Qui-Gon's stance. And I thought, okay, this is already over with. It just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, that's very observant.
He went from the classic, Ewan McGregor stance of the two, and then went to Qui-Gon stance.
I had one random question. In season 2, we learned a little bit of Callus's back history and stuff, and we knew about the battle on Underon, and now that he's part of the Rebels and with Saw Gerrera, are we going to see that interaction anytime, or is Saw Gerrera just still on his own?
I would say, all I can really say is just stay tuned for season 4. That's the non-answer answer, sorry. I know,
Yeah.
right? I just point at it like Space Mary, except watch season 4.
We can make that happen. Your Highness.
Good. So you might give me the same answer, but
wait, I love this Emperor. I was about to say, I love this. Hold on a second. Can I get a picture of the Emperor asking
Right. Use the Force, Your Highness.
But with each passing moment, will you become more my servant? There's the Force lightning isn't showing up.
Probably good for you.
You can add that yourself.
So I know that. Well, first I want to say the Rebels has done a really good job really expanding the universe and definitely showing the depth of the Empire compared to the original trilogy. We see other ranking officers, we see other people that are dealing with the rebellion outside of just Vader and Palp. But now that the rebellion is actually proven to be a very significant threat to the Empire, or at least a major inconvenience, like I said, you might give me the same answer, but is there any possibility we might see Palpatine kind of resurface in this next season? Granted, I know that he has other people to kind of handle this situation for him, and I understand he's getting briefed, probably getting his emails about the rebellion and stuff. But the last time we saw him, I mean, he established the Empire, and then now we don't.
Yeah, I'm sure the Emperor's like, oh, all that rebellion stuff's fake news. Yeah, I think to answer your question, when you have a character who is, that kind of the penultimate, power level, and, even our heroes, as capable they are, they're still like a relatively small group, even though they're growing in power.
Right.
So, but I think it's always a challenge, and we try to rise to the challenge to make the threats to our team, besides physical threats, the dynamics between them, and where they're going and the life choices they make. We always want to try to keep the high amount of drama so that you guys keep tuning in. So, I just noticed you have a cane.
Yes, I do.
That's great.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
You again.
Yes.
He caught me this morning.
Yeah. Yes, I got a comment from him because I asked a question. So, will we ever see Captain Rex confront like some of his old pals, such as like Vader or Cody? Like, I would like to know that. I'm pretty sure Captain Rex in the back over there will probably want to know as well.
Unless it's Vader.
That's a really great Captain Rex.
Wow.
Yeah, I don't think Captain Rex would see Darth Vader as an old pal. just to tell you that. As far as, and there's no evidence in any story we've done that Rex has any information as to, who Darth Vader really is. So if you think about it, not even Ahsoka was sure until the end of season 2, and then she's gone. She doesn't talk to Rex again. We haven't seen her talk to Rex, so that whole.
Sorry, that was a really emotional episode.
Oh yeah,
I'm so traumatized. I just rewatched it last weekend.
So I think as far as like the old buddies, I think you have to think about Vader as there isn't Anakin Vader. There is no Anakin Vader at this point. There's Darth Vader, who is the servant of the Emperor, and who's capable of. It's hard to imagine someone that you really like as Anakin, this likable noble hero, being someone who does these terrible things. So the only way that can happen is if there isn't.
Remember, he betrayed and murdered your father, so.
What about Cody?
Did you say Cody?
Yeah, that.
Hey, Jesse.
Yeah, Commander Cody.
Whatever. Clones aren't dead yet.
Stay tuned for season 4. That's my go-to answer at this point. Oh boy.
For
season 4. We're quoting you on that.
Here, tape that to your shirt.
I just hold up the card.
Just hold up the card. Safe start.
All right. Do you have a question? Thank you.
All right, my question is, being a huge fan of the Empire and their forces, I thought some of the best comics were when they went in depth with the Royal Guards, and there's only very few times, if any, that we've ever seen, any hints or glimpses towards the Red Guards in Rebels. And seeing Thrawn, this Grand Admiral, and in the comics and books, how he's one of the Emperor's right-hand men, and how he would have taken over the Empire had his bodyguard not killed him in the books. The original books. The original books, people. My bad. But, will we get more in depth upon the Royal Guards and actually see them in their full potential on screen?
Yeah, it's funny. I feel like that might be a question for like the larger Star Wars, discussion panel, where this is really about Rebels and our family. And if you think about it, like if the Red Guards are around, then chances are the Emperor's around. and then like you have a character who's way overpowered our family. So this really is like the story of Ezra and his family, and their growth and their changes and them coming together as a family and their evolution and their attempts to help build the rebellion. So if you think about it, there probably isn't like, not that I don't want to kill any idea of it, but the idea of the Red Guards really, why I admit they're awesome. I love the Stradley Crimson Guard series, or Mike Richardson, the Dark Horse comics. Those are really, really great comics. I'm not sure there's room in Rebels for those guys, I'm just saying.
They're not typically sent out on missions. They're surrounding the Emperor, and so they'll be where he is. We do have Death Troopers coming in with Thrawn, that was shown. So
yeah, you saw
that
was pretty amazing.
That would be more like the elite that would actually be sent out rather than the Royal Guard.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you all very much.
Got a quick season 4 question for you, Henry, that I think you can answer. I think you can answer. As far as season 4, we know it's the final season. How has the approach and the writing process changed, specifically in terms of like greater consequences or maybe faster pace? Could you talk a little bit about the process for how season 4 is different than the previous?
Yeah, when we were still working on writing season 3, I've got like maybe 9 scripts in production. In work at one time, and we're starting to look ahead to season 4 and what it is. We sort of have meetings to kind of lay out our basic arcs and what we want to do with it, and then there definitely is that sense of momentum that you're building toward anyway. But also, there's a lot of work to be done to tie up storylines and stuff. So we really want to make the whole decision with Simon and Kiri. It really comes down to let's tell the most satisfying story we can, and how we go about doing that is like writing the best story we can. So I don't know.
Thanks.
I could just say that.
Are
you a Star Wars character?
No, I'm Steven Universe.
Oh, okay. Of course, that's great.
Thank you. So one of the things I love about the Star Wars TV shows is, in the case of Clone Wars, what it does for Anakin's eventual fall to the dark side. It really makes it feel narratively earned. And in the case of Rebels, you feel like the tragedy of Vader's fall, and in a way that, for me, the prequel series, the prequel trilogy didn't really do. And so I just want to say I really appreciate that, because especially Twilight of the Apprentice, like the final confrontation between Ahsoka and Anakin, just like that was the tragic arc that I really needed. But my question is, are we going to get anything else on Ahsoka Tano?
I can't even put this up. I'll just.
Wait, his shirt did say he did take the question mark off and put an exclamation point on his shirt with Ahsoka lives.
He made a comment at Celebration that he said it so you can answer it. Because he said that he was going to answer the question of what happened to her in the medium where the question was posed. He said that at Celebration.
Why does Cody do this to us?
Hold on. That's the cryptic stuff. He's like really good at that. I'm not very good.
So he had that shirt on that said,
Ahsoka lives, question mark.
And then he played the season 4. Well, first he started by breaking our hearts and being like, season 4 is going to be the end, and we were all like sobbing. And then he goes, season 4 trailer, and then we were like, yay, and also sobbing. And then he came back on with the shirt and took the little question mark off, and it was an exclamation point. So Ahsoka lives, exclamation point. Which I feel like you wouldn't do that if you're not going to.
No, I saw it. What did he say when they called on it? I can't remember. I watched it. It was a live
He
stream.
probably just smirked and went, stay tuned for season 4.
He does what we call
You've answered
floating.
the question. She answered the question.
Well, thank you. I don't know anything. I'm just making it all up.
I don't think Dave has ever lied. He's just misled and hinted. And
he's total Sith Lord.
I know nothing except what you know.
So that's just a lie.
Hi. I was just wondering, in season 4, will there ever be any light whips?
Lightsaber with a whip instead.
Well, we you mean like the Nigerian whips? Like
sort of, but they were lightsabers. I think similar. It's the closest.
But that is that originated from a game?
I think it came like the old school comics or books like Share Brave.
Right.
I've never liked the mechanics of that myself.
I think it's an interesting. Yeah, I don't honestly. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
I was gonna say, I know that they were in Clone Wars, so I know the technology is around, so it's not impossible. At least the laser whip.
I think we called them a laser whip.
I think it's a similar concept.
Yeah.
It might be as close as you're gonna get, honestly.
It's interesting.
Pretty cool.
It would be.
Yeah.
Wait, speaking of things, season 4.
So wait, so if I was to ask you, like, who would use that?
I'm probably just thinking maybe random citizen that just has it.
Oh, okay. So rather than a lightsaber, they would use a lightsaber.
Sabine had something like that.
Double the danger of
I
your
was gonna
weapon
say,
to
I want to see
yourself.
that cosplay next year. Can you like?
Sabine has something like that.
I mean, I would have to get some LED strings and
Right.
everything.
Yeah, make it happen. Next
Okay.
year. I have one.
We'll be on the lookout.
Yeah. I have one last question for you, Henry.
Thank you.
This is coming from someone else who was at Dragon Con last year, but she couldn't make it this year. So you promised us X-Wings at some point. In season 4, we're finally getting them. So
Yes,
why did
you are.
Why
You're
did
getting
we-
X-Wings.
So the facetious question is, why did we have to wait? The less facetious question is, what was the thought process behind waiting so long to bring in like the classic Rebellion Starfighter?
Well, I think that the Rebellion probably didn't have them yet, and that's really it. They're still just kind of trying to scramble and cobble whatever they can do to fight the Empire. So the X-wings, the idea is that they're probably like an older ship that they might have gotten hold of. They're still good, but I think the discussion was we've seen a lot of X-wings. We've seen them in the games. We see them in Rogue One. So when they appear, you really want it to be special. And in the meantime, why not use like the other stuff that you've seen? Besides, yeah, I mean, I think I'm just trying to figure out like what we've got really. We've got Y-wings, which we know we stole, right? Then you saw in the trailer there was a new wing. So
B-wing got been in the A-wings,
right.
so we're just waiting for Wedge Antilles to upgrade to a better class of ship.
Yeah, one of the things the story group has been doing is watching the timeline and working on the development stuff. With the book Thrawn, they told me I had TIE fighters at the beginning of the book, and they said those don't exist yet, but you could start putting them in about midway through. That's when they start being deployed and such. So, just to second Henry's answer, they're just not at the Rebellion at this point, and they just gradually come in.
I think we've got time for one more. Brandy? We have time for one more question? Okay.
So how far into the process did you know that 4 seasons was going to be your cutoff point? And if it wasn't from day one, how did it affect your writing of the story arcs and things of that nature?
Yeah, I don't think it did. I mean, you have the characters evolve and grow, and then, as has been said, like in Celebration, it was just time. It was time to, to end this part of the story. And if you think about all the previous Star Wars you've seen, you end a chapter, you end an episode, and then there's the next one. And it might be some time has passed, and then there's going to be kind of stories that are told in between, in media and video games and books. So I think that this was the time for this chapter to come to its end. So as far as like impacting the story, I never really thought about it. I just thought about, we've had a fantastic run of telling some really great Star Wars stories that hopefully will live with you guys, and that you guys will think about these characters even after the series is gone. And that's really what we want to do, is provide something that's enduring, and like add a chapter to the Star Wars universe that you'll want to show your kids, and they'll want to show their kids, just like Clone Wars. And so we're all in love with Star Wars, and we never want it to end. And George created this rich universe that we can continually add stories to. He's excited about the movies and stuff coming out, because he didn't have to make them. He can go like, wow, that's a really interesting thing that you guys are doing. So keep doing it.
What's next?
You know he's not gonna. Wait, hold on. Hold it up again.
This is what's next.
There we go.
just season 4. I can't wait for you guys to see it. I think you're gonna love it.
I think that's the best note we can possibly end on. So thank you very much. If your friend is a Rebels character right now, please come up here so they can grab a picture of y'all because you look cool.
Let's give another cheer.
Thank you for listening to the Mobcast Network.